Good afternoon, everyone. Hope you're all doing really well. It's been a while since we've spoke or seen each other, so I'm hoping this tutorial is going to be really helpful, useful for you, and hopefully give you something different to do other than just the areas of study that have been set up to now. So what I'm hoping to introduce today is sequencing in music, essentially performing using music software, not just an acoustic instrument that you might typically expect. It's using software to produce or realize an existing piece of music. So this website, Sound Nation, is what I want you to go on to. So just at the top there, all this information is also going to be on an email because it's free and it's very, very easy to use, very similar to GarageBand, which means that most of you, if not all of you, are going to be able to access this as long as you can get onto a computer or a laptop. So essentially, click on that, join for free, just sign up. It just needs an email address. You can use your school one or you can use your personal one. And once you're in, we can start basically. So you'll get a page similar to this. And what you're going to do, you're going to click on Studio. So if you click on Studio, your digital work area will load up, and this will be your first page. There's a lot of information there. So we need to declutter this because for the task that we're going to be looking at, you're not going to need hardly any of this. So first things first, let's just get rid of things we don't need. So you don't need that, we don't need that. So you can click on here, it gets rid of that area there. Because we're using MIDI, we're not using live audio, we can get rid of these tracks as well. So where it says audio channel 1, I'm going to delete that, audio channel 2, audio channel 3, and I'm just pressing backspace on my keyboard here to delete. So click backspace, and then the little piano symbol there, that indicates that we've got a MIDI instrument, which is fine. We're okay to use MIDI. In fact, we can even get rid of these effect tracks. So these are our kind of mastering effects. We don't need them right now. It's not important. Brilliant. So if you're at this point, we're at the point where we can start to introduce the piece of music that I'm asking you to sequence. So where is it? Down here. This is Castle on the Hill by Ed Sheeran. Now for sequencing, you will need to find, at some point, whether you're doing your own piece or whatever it might be, a piece of music that looks similar to this. So it's got the notated pieces of music on. It might look more fancy. I mean, this is a relatively easy piece of music, hence why I'm doing it as an example and giving it you as like a starting point. But you need to find the score. That is important. Okay. From this, I can kind of get a lot of information. I can see that we've got chords that are played and the notes underneath there, each chord, and then the little kind of chord symbol there as to where they're placed. Okay. I've then got the actual main melody. So we've got the melody itself and different rhythms basically for each note. Lots of repetition, which is useful. Some kind of variations as you go through, but largely quite straightforward. Now, all of this information here on the screen is what we now need to realize in Sound Nation. So if I just take this very first bar, okay, so I've got a C note, it's a minim, I've got a D, I've got an E, okay, 2 crotchets. Right, I'm going to just take that down for a second. I'm going to double click here to bring up my note editor. If I kind of drag that out, I can extend this as long as I want to. I'll keep it pretty simple for now, just so you can see what we've got going on. Now, finding the first note. So if I go back, I think it was a C, that's correct. Now if I click in here, if I select the draw note and click, I can hear a note. Fantastic, brilliant. If I extend this, the note gets longer. So when I press play, brilliant. Okay. Now, where you're probably thinking, how do I know what rhythms are on a score and how it translates to Sound Nation? And I've put together a little bit of a key. So this key here shows you, or tells you, sorry, the different note lengths and what rhythm that represents. So if we start with the first note on the score, which I can remember as being a minim, that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of the small squares, or how I can sometimes read it, 2 bigger squares, so two groups of 4. So I'm going to go back to my score. I'm going to drag that out, so it's worth 8 squares. Brilliant. I go back to the score, and this is kind of the back and forth of it to begin with. So that first note's done. I've got a D and an E, so they're crotchet notes. So I need to use my key to work out what a crotchet's worth. So a crotchet is worth 1, 2, 3, 4. It's half the minimum, as you probably realise. 4 squares. So I'll go back. I find a D. I think it was a D. There we go. And I bring that back. 4 squares. The next note was an E. 4 squares. Now I'll play that. Brilliant. Okay. Not really sounding like much at the moment. Trust me, we'll get there. At the top of the sheet, another little thing just to think about here is it's moderately fast. I'm going to change the BPM here to about 150. I'd actually say that's really fast, but it kind of translates better, in my opinion, at this tempo. Fantastic. So I've got the opening bar. Brilliant. I'm going to leave that track for a second. I'm going to add a new channel. So I'm going to click on that, if it'll let me. I have to move this out of the way for a sec. Okay, brilliant. Instrument channel, fantastic. Drag that back. This is going to be for my chords. So I'm going to double click again. I'm going to go back to my score, wherever the score's gone. Where are you? Oh, I clicked it off. Oh, here we go. Sorry about that. So for the first chord, I've got the notes E, G, and C. So again, I'm going to find on here an E. I'm going to go a little bit lower than where I pitched the melody. So I'm going to pitch here for my first note. Oops, got my drawing tool on. Okay, and this is worth, just by how I'm kind of reading the score, this is worth a semi-brief. So this is going to be quite a long, drawn-out note. Okay, it's a whole bar. Then I'm going to have a G and a C. Okay. Let's see what that sounds like together. Okay. Still sounds a bit weird on its own, guaranteed, or I understand that, but you know, we can start to look at things in a bit more detail in a little bit. So essentially, I've got my chords on one channel, I've got my melody on another channel. With this process of adding the notes, checking with our key, which is just here, okay, dotted notes, remember, are worth 1.5 of the note it says. So minim, it's worth 2 beats, but because it's dotted, it's worth 3 beats, okay? So we've got dotted notes and we've got kind of whole notes there. Using this, really, you can't go wrong with adding information in. Another good way of testing where you're at is this is a bar, okay? 1, 2, 3. So if I go back to my first track here, double click, you can drag this out a little bit. I'll use the tools there to minimize or maximize. So bar 1, bar 2. I go back to bar 2, I've got an E note there, and it's a semi-brief, so that's worth 4 squares. I'm gonna add that in just because, just so you can see what it looks like. There we go, 4 whole squares. Bar 3, we've got again a minim and 2 crotchets. Okay, so it's a C note again from what I can see. Oops. That's strange. Okay. Okay, it's my minim. Oops. It's quite touch sensitive, so don't get too clicky on it. otherwise it will add multiple notes that you probably don't need. Okay, so it's bars 1 to 3 finished. I may as well add the chords underneath just so you can hear what that sounds like in total. Double click again, so the second chord is F, A, C. So I want to make sure my drawing notes on my F, my A, it's a bit strange to me it's doing that. Not sure why it was glitching there a little bit, but as you can see, just common sense with how you can work it out and then edit it afterwards. And then we've got A minor, which is E, A, and C. So go back to my E note. Right, let's hear what that sounds like together. Now, sounds a bit muddy, in my opinion. The sounds aren't fantastic, but remember, this isn't necessarily, especially with this software, about at the moment capturing the sound. It's about how well you can input the information, how accurately you can do that. I'm going to fast forward slightly to the finished version. So this is going to be, hopefully, where you're at by the time you finish this. And I've changed some of the sounds. To do that, you click, in fact, let's just get rid of these for you, just so you can see what hopefully you'll see on the screen. Okay, so it should replicate what you've got there. Edit instruments, and in here you have an array of different instruments. GM2 is your piano kind of bank of sounds. So you can edit it as you wish. I've just clicked on an electric piano sound there. You can change the volume if you want to, if you want the chords a bit quieter so you can hear the melody a bit more. And this is what it sounds like in total. Okay, a couple of other small things that I'll quickly reference to, because it might trip you up if you're not sure. On the score itself, where is it? You've got rests. So that's a crotchet rest, got a minim rest there. Use the key in the same way. Rather than adding a note for, let's say, as a crotchet, which would be worth 4 squares, rather than adding a note, you leave a gap of 4 squares. So if I kind of show you where that is on the score. So that's a bar 11, I think it is. Kind of at bar 11. Okay, brilliant. Is that our minim? Yeah, so bar 11 here is our minim. And you'll notice I've left a gap of 2. I haven't put a note in. If I zoom in, okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 small squares. And that's really important that you read the scores accurately as you can. There's another thing to quickly look at. Okay, hopefully you'll realise that this is a tied note. Okay, tied note. So when you click this one in that D, you're just going to drag it out for the length of another crotchet. So that's worth 2. That's a rest for 2. Single note, and that note goes over the other bar. So you just drag it out. And again, I'll show you where we are. So that's 10, 12, 13, 14, 16, 17, 18, bar 18.